So this is my official retirement announcement.
Okay.
I have retired from Bering Sea Gold after 12 years of service.
Nice.
And the reason why I'm making this announcement now is we're about to come out with our second season of YouTube.
There's a fine line between striking it rich and paying the ultimate price, and no show proved that quite like Bering Sea Gold. For years, we watched fearless crews push themselves to the absolute limit in Alaska's deadliest waters. Sadly, the dangers of this brutal line of work hit far too close to home. The tightly knit Bering Sea community has had to mourn the heartbreaking loss of several iconic stars whose passion and grit left a permanent mark on the series. So what beloved Bering Sea Gold members have we lost? Join us as we count down the unforgettable cast members who are no longer with us. John Bunce. It takes a special kind of grit to hunt for gold at the bottom of the frozen Bering Sea, where one wrong move can cost you everything. But as fans of Bering Sea Gold know all too well, sometimes the heaviest storms aren't the ones brewing on the water. They are the ones raging quietly inside. During the show's second season, the tight-knit mining community was completely blindsided by a tragedy that had absolutely nothing to do with the dangers of the deep. John Bunce was just 26 years old when he passed away. As a diver on Zeke Tenhoff's dredging ship, The Edge, John wasn't always the main focus of the cameras, but he was the absolute heartbeat of the crew. More than just a co-worker, he was Zeke's closest childhood friend. Tragically, John didn't lose his life to a mining accident. On September 1st, 2012, police were called to a home in Nome, Alaska, where they discovered John had died by suicide from a self-inflicted gunshot wound. The show later confirmed the heartbreaking news to viewers during the emotional Season 2 finale. Behind his struggles, John was an incredibly bright, adventurous soul who loved to learn. He was a multi-talented guy, a certified diver, a professional truck driver, a boat safety expert, and a hazardous waste worker. To honor his deep connection to the water, his friends and family scattered his ashes across Norton Sound in the Bering Sea. He left a permanent mark on the fleet, proving that the strongest bonds are forged far beneath the surface. But the heartbreak in Nome wouldn't end there, as the dangerous waters of the Bering Sea would soon claim another life from the mining community. Just 2 years later, the fleet was reminded of how quickly a routine dive can turn fatal when the ocean itself becomes the ultimate judge. Keep watching to find out what went wrong on a late Wednesday night when a veteran diver was suddenly found unresponsive in the freezing depths. Sean Beals. When you dive beneath the freezing waves of Nome to suck up gold from the seafloor, you are completely at the mercy of your equipment and your crew. It is a high-stakes gamble where a single silent malfunction can turn a routine shift into a fight for survival. A reality the local fleet learned the hard way during a chaotic summer season. In a place where help is often miles away, the ocean remains the ultimate judge. Sean Beals was a 39-year-old diver from Seattle who traveled to Alaska to join the summer gold rush. In August 2014, Sean was working hard about 4 miles east of Nome, diving off a 44-foot-long gold dredge named the Argo. He was a quarter-mile offshore doing the grueling underwater work that keeps the gold flowing. But late on a Wednesday night, things went terribly wrong. Around 10:30 p.m., a fellow crew member on the surface vessel noticed something terrifying. Sean was floating face down and completely unresponsive in the chilly water. The crew sprang into action, pulling his body onto the deck of the dredge and immediately starting CPR to try and save his life. Search and rescue teams rushed to the scene and transported him to the Norton Sound Regional Hospital. But sadly, it was too late, and he was pronounced dead. The authorities ruled his passing as an accidental marine death. While there was no foul play, investigators had to figure out if Sean drowned or suffered a sudden medical emergency like a heart attack while working under the surface. His tragic passing marked the third diving death in Nome in just 3 years, serving as a grim reminder of how quickly the Bering Sea can take a life. Cody Moen. Working in the freezing elements of Nome means pushing your body to its absolute limits, where staying in peak shape is a matter of survival. When you spend over a decade dodging disaster on the open water, you learn that the physical toll of the job eventually catches up with everyone. For one legendary deckhand, the grind of the Bering Sea was a lifestyle he embraced fully, even as the clock was quietly ticking on his final season. Cody Moen was an absolute powerhouse aboard the massive Christine Rose dredge, making his big television debut way back in the very first episode of the show in 2012. Working side by side with Captain Sean Pomrenke Cody did it all, acting as a deckhand heavy equipment operator and fearless ice diver. He proved his grit early on during that first season when he got tangled up in a hose line and was almost thrown into the icy sea. It was a terrifying moment caught on camera that earned him the instant respect of his crew. Over the next 12 years, he appeared in more than 85 episodes, helping haul in millions of dollars worth of gold while conquering freezing temperatures. As the seasons rolled on, fans could not help but notice a massive change in Cody, who underwent a major physical transformation and lost a lot of weight. He dropped the pounds to stay agile and build up his endurance for extreme outdoor sports like the grueling Iron Dog race and his intense diving shifts. Though he briefly vanished in season 16, causing viewers to panic, his triumphant return proved he was still a cornerstone of the fleet. Sadly, the hard-working star passed away in December 2024. A heartbreaking loss confirmed by his sister and obituaries. His sudden departure left a massive void on the deck, leaving fans to mourn a man who truly gave everything to the gold fields. But the pressure of chasing fortunes in the freezing north wouldn't be the only thing to break a member of the fleet. While the crews on the water risked their lives against the brutal elements, a chaotic lifestyle on shore was quietly pulling one young star into a completely different kind of trap. Stick around to see how a high-stakes double life away from the cameras collapsed in a flash, exposing a dark secret that brought law enforcement down on the crew. Yvonne Atkinson. Hunting for gold in the freezing depths of Nome requires a sharp mind, but the chaotic lifestyle on shore can sometimes pull a person into a completely different kind of danger. While the crew members on the water constantly risk their lives against nature, the temptations waiting on land can quietly trigger a major downfall before anyone even sees it coming. For one young crew member, a secret double life away from the cameras ended up bringing the hammer of the law down hard. Yvonne Atkinson was known to fans as a lively dive tender on the Discovery Channel reality series, working hard to support the underwater operations in the icy Alaskan wilderness. But while she was helping her team chase fortunes under the waves, an undercover operation was quietly unfolding on the streets of Nome. In late 2014, the local police department and the Alaska State Troopers wrapped up a massive, year-long drug investigation that completely blindsided viewers of the show. The 22-year-old reality TV worker was arrested alongside another young man named Kevin Beamish after a series of undercover drug buys. Investigators revealed that Beamish sold heroin to an undercover officer multiple times, often entering and leaving Yvonne's home right before making the deliveries. When the authorities finally closed in with a search warrant for her house, they hit the jackpot. Inside her home, police discovered roughly 3 grams of heroin, nearly $2,000 in cash, and digital scales. They even found Alaska Airlines tickets printed out in her name, suggesting she might have been planning a quick exit. Yvonne was hit with 3 felony drug charges and held on a $30,000 bail, proving that the legal system can be just as unforgiving as the Bering Sea. Scott Meisterhem. When you play the role of a bad guy on television, it is easy for fans to assume it is all just an act for the cameras. But sometimes, the aggressive attitude people flash on the screen is a warning sign of a much darker reality waiting to explode behind closed doors. For one notorious reality star, the reckless behavior that made him famous eventually caught up with him in a courtroom far away from the ocean. Scott Meisterhem gained national fame by playing the ultimate villain for 3 seasons on Bering Sea Gold. From 2012 to 2014, viewers watched him stir up drama while dredging the freezing waters of Alaska. But in 2022, the drama turned incredibly serious when the 55-year-old found himself facing major criminal charges in Michigan after his then-wife came forward with horrifying allegations. She accused him of assaulting her over the Christmas holidays, which quickly led her to file for divorce. During the emotional trial in Kalamazoo County Circuit Court, a jury convicted Scott of 1 misdemeanor count of aggravated domestic assault. While he was found not guilty on several severe sexual conduct charges, his ex-wife shared a heartbreaking statement explaining that the attack left her with permanent jaw pain, ringing in her ears, and a broken nose that required surgery. It turns out this was far from his first run-in with the law, as prosecutors pointed out that Scott already had 3 previous assault convictions and multiple drunk driving offenses on his record. The judge sentenced him to 18 months of probation, giving him credit for the 228 days he had already spent sitting in a jail cell. Now, under a strict no-contact order, Scott served as a loud reminder to his fan base that real-world abuse has real-world consequences. Sean Pomrenke. Building a massive family business in the brutal frozen north takes an incredible amount of focus and a flawless reputation to survive. But when you plan to pass your multi-million-dollar empire down to the next generation, you always run the risk that your legacy might crash into a wall of reckless behavior. For one iconic mining patriarch, watching his partner face the ultimate test of maturity meant praying that a history of wild legal trouble wouldn't completely destroy everything they built together. Steve Pomrenke is widely known as the honorable and hardworking backbone of the fleet. Raised on a dairy farm in Minnesota, Steve saved every penny to chase his dream of mining in Alaska. He faced devastating failures early on, nearly losing everything before making a desperate last-ditch effort with his son Sean to build the massive Christine Rose dredge. That gamble paid off beautifully, and under Steve's sharp leadership, the duo hauled in thousands of ounces of gold worth millions of dollars. But Steve always carried a heavy worry about whether Sean had the business smarts to keep the company afloat, once his father was no longer around. While Steve is loved for his discipline, Sean became a fan favorite for much wilder reasons. Audiences are often shocked by how completely different the two men are. Sean has frequently made headlines for the wrong reasons, including a dramatic moment when an angry business partner blasted him over unpaid bills. Even worse, back in 2013, Sean accidentally backed his car into a person carrying groceries. Instead of helping the victim, he reportedly just smiled, gave a thumbs up, and sped away. When the police finally caught up with him, Sean blew a .125 on a breathalyzer test, which was nearly double the legal limit. To make matters worse, his car was completely uninsured, leaving him with a mountain of serious criminal charges. That was not his only dangerous encounter on land, either. A year before that infamous hit-and-run, Sean got into a violent bar fight that ended with him getting stabbed in the back, and spending several days in the hospital. Despite all the intense criticism for his DUIs and run-ins with the law, fans still show Sean an immense amount of love because he is incredibly friendly and always willing to chat or take photos with them. He even jumped onto social media for an open Q&A session where he admitted that he started mining with his dad at just 14 years old. He loves the grind and laughs off the drama, even though the brutal seasons take a heavy physical toll on his body. But while Sean has constantly kept himself in the spotlight through his wild exploits and legal troubles, his father chose a completely different path. Steve Pomrenke. When you build an empire with your own two hands, knowing exactly when to step away from the cameras can be the toughest decision of your entire life. It is easy to get hooked on the thrill of the chase, but sometimes a true pioneer chooses to simply vanish into the sunset, leaving behind a legacy that fans are still desperate to figure out. For one iconic father, walking away meant leaving his empire behind and letting the world guess his next move. Steve Pomrenke joined the cast of Bering Sea Gold in the very first season and quickly became a massive fan favorite. Viewers fell in love with his salt-of-the-earth personality and incredible work ethic. Raised on a dairy farm in Minnesota, Steve learned the value of hard work as a kid before making a living as a mechanic. He saved every penny he could to open his first gold pit mine, but it was a total disaster. He narrowly avoided going broke by pivoting to the water, purchasing his first dredging ship named the Shamrock, and later investing in the legendary Christine Rose, which brought him massive success. Steve spent about 6 years sharing his adventures on various spin-off shows alongside his son, Sean. Even though Sean frequently got into serious trouble with the law, Steve was always right there to support him. But after filming wrapped up on Season 10 in 2018, Steve completely vanished from the television screen. Because he stays completely off social media with no profiles anywhere, fans have been left wondering what he has been up to. Thankfully, since the show has never addressed any tragic news, it is safe to assume he is still happily enjoying his quiet retirement away from the brutal Alaskan ice. Emily Rydell. Chasing massive dreams in the frozen north requires a level of fearlessness that completely catches the local old-timers off guard. But when you are a total outsider, invading a dangerous world dominated by rough men, you have to be prepared to fight double as hard for respect. For one brave young woman, trading a life of beautiful music for the muddy grind of the ocean floor would turn out to be a gamble that completely redefined her future. It was over a decade ago when Emily Rydell first arrived in Nome, Alaska during the busy summer season. She actually had a very unusual goal, hoping to harvest enough gold to fund her expensive opera singing studies. Her close childhood friend Zeke Tenhoff suggested that she could make big bucks from gold dredging in the Bering Sea. It did not take very long for Emily to completely shift direction, ditching her music plans to buy her very own vessel named the Eroica. Through pure grit, she built herself up to become one of the most successful gold dredge captains in the entire region, standing proud as the fleet's only female captain. Emily was definitely no stranger to getting her hands dirty. Growing up as a third-generation Alaskan, she already understood how brutal the local winters could get, with temperatures dropping below zero and freezing winds making it feel like 20 to 30 below. Emily openly admitted that for the first couple of years, the male-dominated crew did not welcome her at all. However, as people watched her breaking her back to make her boat profitable, they grew to respect her. While her story might tempt others to embrace the great outdoors to strike it rich, the reality of the Bering Sea brings terrifying threats like hypothermia and frostbite, and many people leave completely broke and disappointed. But Emily wasn't the only pioneer whose journey in Nome was defined by intense personal struggles against the elements. Her own childhood friend, who first convinced her to join the gold rush, would face a brutal mental and physical toll that nearly cost him everything. Keep watching to find out how this legendary diver survived absolute burnout and a complete disappearance from television to rebuild his life alongside an unexpected partner. Zeke Tenhoff. When you throw your entire soul into the brutal world of gold mining, pushing your mind and body to the absolute brink can completely shatter you. The pressure to constantly build bigger machines and outmine everyone else on the water carries a heavy price that can lead to total exhaustion before you even realize you are drowning in stress. For one legendary pioneer, surviving the heavy mental toll of the Bering Sea meant stepping entirely away from the cameras to find the ultimate piece of happiness that would save his life. Zeke Tenhoff grew up in Alaska, which bred him to be incredibly independent, resourceful, and a massive fan favorite since the very first episode of the show. When the series premiered, Zeke was only in his early 20s, but he already had a few seasons of intense gold dredging under his belt. While he loved to have fun and play around when he was off the clock, Zeke was deadly serious about his work, using a strange sixth sense to read the ocean floor and strike it rich. He proved his genius mechanical skills by building his own custom dredge named the Clark, working tirelessly every season to make it bigger and faster. The only real obstacle standing in his way was finding a crew that could actually keep up with his wild work ethic. Tragically, pushing himself to be the absolute best caused him to burn out completely, and after struggling with heavy personal issues, Zeke vanished from the show after season 9 to travel and clear his head. Thankfully, gold mining runs deep in his blood, and he made a triumphant return in season 13 with his wildest idea yet, a sailboat dredge called the Black Swan. Today, fans are thrilled to see him back on television, happy and smiling again. That brilliant new spark in his eyes is likely thanks to his fiancée Alexis, an artist and professional engineer who has worked for giant festivals like Burning Man and Cirque du Soleil. With her extensive background in rigging, she is the perfect partner to help him conquer the waves and secure his legacy. Brad Kelly. Chasing gold across the dangerous waters of Alaska requires a tight crew, but family dynamics on land can sometimes become far more volatile than the sea itself. When a reality star behaves like a wild card in front of millions of viewers, the boundary between television drama and real-life danger can completely dissolve without warning. For one controversial family leader, the chaotic attitude that made him a television mainstay eventually exploded into a brutal criminal case that shocked fans across the globe. Brad Kelly is well known to television audiences as the patriarch of the famous Kelly clan on the Norton Sound Inlet. He originally brought his two sons, Chris and Andy, all the way to Nome, with the grand hope of striking it rich together. Because Brad had his kids when he was just a teenager, his relationship with them on screen has always felt more like a competitive brotherhood than a traditional father and son bond, leading to plenty of wild arguments over the years. While some viewers online initially found his unfiltered, intense personality hilarious and compared him to a real-life psychopath with no emotions, things took a deeply dark turn away from the cameras. In 2022, Brad was arrested after a horrifying domestic violence incident involving a woman with whom he shares a child. According to police reports, the victim woke up in a pool of her own blood to find Brad standing over her. Hospital staff later confirmed she had suffered life-threatening head injuries from the attack. Brad originally claimed the woman simply fell and hit her head on a table, but the evidence was overwhelming. He ultimately accepted a plea deal, pleading guilty to a serious felony assault charge while prosecutors dropped the remaining counts. A judge sentenced him to 4 years behind bars, though 3 of those years were suspended, meaning he only had to serve about 8 months as long as he behaved himself. Now facing 5 years of strict probation, Brad remains one of the most polarizing and heavily criticized figures to ever sail the Bering Sea. What name on the list shocked you the most? Share your thoughts with us in the comments below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Also click the next video shown on your screen. You will enjoy it.